Milling Through History presents Jack the Ripper. When it comes to the notorious criminal known as Jack the Ripper, many people have wondered who this individual could be. However, it is perhaps a mystery which will never be solved. It all began in the 1880s, as this particular decade within British society saw a massive rise of immigrants coming to London, especially in the area known as Whitechapel. By 1888, there were over 80,000 people living there, and the economic conditions were absolutely horrendous. Most people were poor, living conditions were abysmal. It was far easier to go to Whitechapel to die than there was to do anything else. In fact, both men and women found it next to impossible to have any real career whatsoever, as Whitechapel was notoriously known for having at least 62 confirmed brothels, if not more. Social unrest, crime, nativism, anti-Semitism all became regular occurrences within Whitechapel, and as such, the entire section of London in that area was prime for something to occur which would certainly act as almost as a pressure valve amongst the people. One of the things that seemed to be rather commonplace within Whitechapel and within almost every major city worldwide were attacks on women. Now, from 1888 to 1891, 11 women were murdered. However, the police were unable to determine if these women were all killed by the same person. Many times, the murders all had at least a few things which were similar in nature, but there was no real way to say if this was all one person or multiple copycats. In the case of Jack the Ripper, though, there are 5 women who are referred to specifically having been killed by him. They are known as the Canonical Five. Their names were Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. Now, to be completely honest, ladies and gentlemen, the murders of these women are exceedingly gruesome, and the images are rather disturbing. As such, the common traits found amongst the women who were killed by the Ripper was that they had deep slash wounds to the throat, extensive abdominal area mutilations, removal of their internal organs, and progressive facial mutilations. Now, when it came to the investigation of these murders, though, Scotland Yard had a very difficult time, but their primary suspects would be butchers, slaughterers, surgeons, and physicians, namely because they knew how to use a sharp-edged instrument to cut into flesh and do pretty much everything that was seen within these murders. What made the murders rather unique, though, was that they would occur on weekends and on holidays, which led the police to believe that the killer may have been an individual who was regularly employed, and therefore only had a limited window in which to commit the crimes. Now, tradesmen were oftentimes questioned and followed, and until the police could confirm that their alibis were solid, were always seen as suspects. Now, the suspects of who Jack the Ripper could have been, though, was certainly nowadays virtually an infinity. Many people believe that the killer could have been a butcher or a cow drover, and there was even a stronger belief that the killer may have been a doctor. In the years following the murders, numerous suspects have been named by people, including even a prominent member of the royal family. The problem is, though, is that as each successive year went by after the murders had occurred, it became even easier to play the blame game on anyone who could have conceivably have been the Ripper, as there was no way to actually prove who it could have been. As quickly as Jack the Ripper showed up, he just as quickly disappeared. However, one of the most famous pieces of evidence to come from this were the famed Ripper letters. Now, these letters have come under scrutiny by historians over the years, namely because it was confirmed at one point that one of the letters was written by a reporter by the name of Fred Best, who had confessed that he had signed the name Jack the Ripper in order to heighten interest in the murders and keep the newspaper business alive within London, as news of the murders would continuously go ahead and ensure higher revenue. Now, many of the locations of the Ripper murders have long since been destroyed, either by new building projects within London itself, or, more famously, thanks to 2 world wars. And while many of the sites of the Ripper murders are gone, his legacy is certainly one that is forever famed, as many people want to go and hear the tales of these gruesome events. And as a tourist attraction, Jack the Ripper will certainly always be remembered by people, mostly for what he had done, but also because it certainly shows exactly what could happen if all the settings are right for all the ill will of a group of people to just be borne out onto society. For more information, please consider these suggested titles. Be sure to click on the left-hand side of the screen to subscribe to our show, and on the right-hand side for our latest episode. And we will see you again for the next episode of Milling Through History.